everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Kendall Scudder, State Chair of the Texas Democratic Party. Chair Scudder, thank you so much for joining me once again.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I would love if you could give us an update of where Texas Democrats are right now, because you and I spoke about 2 weeks ago, and at that time, Texas Democrats in the state's House have left the state. They left to avoid the quorum needed to vote on Republican-drawn congressional maps. And these maps caused national controversy because they had the potential to flip 5 seats in Congress from blue to red at the behest of President Donald Trump. Now, this week, Texas Democrats are back in the state. So, to start off the conversation, talk to us a little bit about the timing. Why was now the time to come back?
Well, the intention of the Democrats' quorum break was to kill the first special session, and they did that successfully. Second intention was to start a national conversation around redistricting and nonpartisan redistricting committees on a federal level. I think they did that. The third prerogative on that was to start getting blue states to get more aggressive with the way they're drawing maps. We're tired as a red state, Democrats always having to carry the burden of these fights, and it's time for blue states to be on the offensive here. And we did that. So there was a lot of success there. And then once the first special session ended, there was a second one called, and the members came back to do the work of their districts and to what they're intending to do. So that strategy is all still playing out. There's a possibility that these maps could pass, but I think all options are still on the table. What we're seeing right now are Republicans like Dustin Burrows, the Speaker of the House, saddling each of them with police officers, refusing to allow them to leave the chamber. I mean, real tyranny. And I think any lover of liberty in this country should be troubled by a government that can behave in such a fashion to people who didn't break any laws.
I mean, talk to us about that because Democrats in Texas described these as permission slips where they had to sign sheet of paper, an agreement saying, if I leave the House, if I leave the chamber, I will have a security escort with me. One member did not sign and she stayed in the chamber. A few others ended up ripping their agreement up and they're back in the chamber staying there too. I mean, what do you make of that agreement?
I mean, I think it's outrageous. It's false imprisonment. That's way beyond what their authority is. I mean, look, this isn't about whether or not you necessarily agree with everything that they're doing. This is about should the government have the right to detain you for no reason? Should the government have a right to hold you when you've committed no crimes? I mean, whether it's talking about DC, where they're sending federal troops in to, arrest people who are just doing minor traffic violations, or you're talking about places where ICE is raiding and they're arresting law-abiding citizens and law-abiding residents and plucking them off the streets without talking to them. There's a problem where the government has this level of overreach, and people need to be concerned. The "Don't Tread on Me" crowd's being real quiet right now, and that's a little surprising.
I mean, let's take the politics out for a moment and let's say your colleague issued you an agreement saying if you want to leave work, you have to have a security detail around the clock, right? I mean, I'm sure that doesn't foster the most collegial environment. So, what are the conversations right now looking like between Democrats and Republicans?
I think things are more tense now than they've really ever been. Like, how do you go back? The Democrats perpetuated a constitutionally protected procedural move. It was put in the Texas Constitution by the founders of Texas. So if you have a problem with it, don't take it up with me, take it up with General Sam Houston. Okay. So they were gone to Chicago. They came like, you don't have to agree with it, you don't have to like it, but it's their constitutional right. They're protected to do it. But while they were gone, their colleagues were tweeting things about deporting them, about taking away some of their citizenships. I mean, pretty vile and disgusting things about arresting them. I mean, like, you don't talk about people you have to work with like that just because you disagree with them. So now they're back on the floor. And how do you work with these people? How do you continue to foster an environment where Republicans took that to such a degree? And I mean, it is just Republicans don't know how to govern. Republicans, they're not acting in a professional way. That's why people aren't getting out of the government what they want. This should all be about how are we making life more affordable for people? How are we getting flood relief for these victims? How are we making sure you can see a doctor when you're sick? And that's not what we're talking about right now because Republicans don't know how to act right.
The conversation got pretty nasty over the past couple of weeks because Governor Abbott, he threatened to arrest these Democrats. He threatened $500 fine a day for the Democrats who left the state. He threatened that they would be out of a job. Have there been any conversations between Democrats and Governor Abbott? What does that look like right now?
Well, let's make clear, he also threatened and told all of his supporters to hunt them down, to which the very next day they had a bomb threat that threatened all of their lives at the behest of the governor. Okay. It is outrageous and beyond the way that they are acting. This is not how our American system of government is supposed to be working. I am not privy to the conversations with House Democratic leadership and the governor. I would be surprised if much of it was happening.
And do they need to pay those $500 a day fines? What does that money look like right now?
Well, I believe those are individual fines to them as individuals. All of them will handle it how they see fit. That's kind of a question for the House Democratic Caucus and for each of those members individually. But I'm sure they'll work through it. It's a small price to pay to do the great monumental efforts they did while they were gone to start resetting a conversation on partisan gerrymandering in this country. And again, I said this on our last interview. I'll say it again. It's not about, we know that Democrats do gerrymandering too. Okay. No one's sitting here saying they don't. But I'm saying that in 2021, every single Democrat in Congress voted in favor of federal nonpartisan redistricting committees, and every Republican voted against them. Okay. We're trying to get to a spot where partisan gerrymandering is gone nationally, blue states and red states. And Republicans just aren't working with us in these efforts to try to get good things done for people so that government's working for you, not for these political games.
I know that a Democratic state rep in Texas, Representative Mahela Pliza, she told NPR this: we had to come back home for the legal battle. Are you privy to what exactly that legal battle really looks like right now?
Yeah, I am. And I'm sure it'll look very similar to other legal battles. For the last 60 years since the Voting Rights Act was passed, every single time that Texas has drawn a districting map, it has violated that. And we have taken them to court every time, and we have won that every single time where they've had to redraw districts. So we don't expect this to be any different. The difference, I guess, would be that pre-clearance got eliminated. And so now we're going to have to take it straight to courts. And so you'll see a similar legal battle to what's been done because they have consistently infringed on the representational rights of minority groups. And there's no way around it. I mean, courts are finding it time and time again. Um, Right now in Texas, it would take a Hispanic Texan 3 votes to equate the representational vote of one white Texan. And it would take a black Texan 5 votes to equate the vote of one white Texan with regards to representation in their government. They would become the least represented demographic in the country of any state. It's immoral, it's unconscionable, and there's no way these maps are going to hold up in court.
And when you present that argument laid out like you just did to Republicans in Texas, I mean, what's their response to that?
I, Honestly, Brittany, when have in recent history the Republicans been concerned in the slightest about the letter of the law? They frame themselves as this law and order party that thinks that they are above the law. We have someone right now on the Epstein list sitting in the White House. Epstein list that he said didn't exist. First, he said it existed, then he said it didn't exist. Now they're trying to release it. I mean, it's outrageous what these people are doing to protect pedophiles, what these people are doing to protect criminals. And I mean, right now, Ghislaine Maxwell just got put in some cush prison here in Texas because they're trying to coddle her to make sure she's not ratting out Donald Trump. I mean, it's just really gross the way they're operating. And so I don't really ever expect them to try to operate within the confines of the law. They try to operate in ways that they can circumvent it to the best of their abilities. But you and I are treated and held to a different standard. We're not expected to do that. We're expected to abide by the law, just as our legislators did, because that quorum break was protected by law. And so, yeah, I've stopped holding them to that standard because they don't hold themselves to it.
And you said in our last conversation that after Democrats, governors in blue states, they said, we're going to fight fire with fire. You were like, what are you guys waiting on? Texas is in this fight now. And California did release some redrawn maps, and they would flip potentially 5 red seats blue in that state. That would counteract what Texas is doing. What do you make of that plan?
Didn't go far enough, but appreciate that they moved on it sooner. I, when you have an opportunity to go bigger, they should have gone bigger. Every one of these blue states should go as big as they possibly can right now. It is the only language that these elected Republicans understand. I mean, it's sad that this is the state of government right now, but it is. And Democrats have to get themselves out of this muscle memory of being the only adults in the room trying to govern things because it's causing us to get circles run around us electorally and governmentally. We've got to fight fire with fire and punch back harder. And so, just passing a map to offset what Republicans do, I think they should have gone bigger and they should have gotten to a point where Republicans would go to the United States Congress and beg for nonpartisan redistricting committees. But with all that being said, grateful that that action was taken and that they went ahead and did it before all of the stuff in Texas really came to a head so that our legislators had some wiggle room to be able to figure out what they could do to manage their own lives.
Let's say I'm a Texas Democrat. I'm in one of those districts that's going to be redrawn. My district's blue. It has the potential to flip and go red. If I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, how does what's happening in California help me here in Texas? What do you say to that?
Well, even with these maps getting changed in places like California, it doesn't change the disparity in representation. It doesn't change the fact that it's harming minority representation in government. That's still a pressing issue, and that's why we're still trying to fight it as best we can. But that is a legal argument that we can actually handle in courts that I believe, as long as those courts aren't stacked and rigged against the game, it's pretty cut and dry and obvious. And I think that Texas Democrats have a really good opportunity here. To those people, what I say is polls don't vote. Previous elections don't vote. We do. And so in the next election, we have an opportunity to do the funniest thing you possibly could. And that's tell Texas Republicans to take these maps and shove it. And we could pick up seats in this session, but only if we get together and harness the fact this state is the lowest turnout state in the country and do everything we can to turn the citizens of this state out to vote to make sure we get a government that works for us, not just for Donald Trump and the billionaire class.
And I know when you and I spoke last time, when Texas Democrats were holding governors' feet to the fire, Governor Gavin Newsom said something, Governor J.B. Pritzker said something, Governor Kathy Hochul said, we're going to see what we can do. Essentially, all options are on the table. One of the governors did say that. So far, we're seeing these maps from California. Do you expect or want to see more from other blue states?
I expect to see it, of course, not just as the chairman of the party that is having to carry the brunt of a lot of this right now, but also as a Democratic voter. I mean, I as a Democrat in society that has been electing these Democrats in order for them to be these great champions of democracy and fighting to preserve, this country, I expect them to act like it. And so, absolutely, I would love to see more action from these blue state governors. I anticipate we will.
And as I said earlier in the conversation, I mean, I still can't wrap my head around a colleague issuing me to sign something saying you can't leave or vice versa. I mean, and just the exchange of what was said the past 2 weeks. I mean, it must, on a personal level, be awkward to return to work. And you said this last time that Democrats are not going to participate in a system where they're not working for you. They're meaning Republicans. They're working for Donald Trump. So, how do Democrats now in Texas work with Republicans in Texas? Because is it at the point right now of no return? Because it does, as someone who's sitting right now in New Jersey on the border of New York, it does seem that way.
This legislative session is the very first time that they don't have both parties chairing committees. Only Republicans chair committees now. They strip Democrats of everything. They're taking away our ability to serve our constituents. It doesn't serve anyone well except for a bunch of partisan hacks. And I think the people of Texas are seeing it. They've seen how Republicans have broken this state. And so, to those people, what I would say to them is how do you think of Texas 30 years ago? Do you feel like your taxes are lower now than they were 30 years ago? Do you feel like your schools are better now than they were 30 years ago? Do you feel safer in your community than you did 30 years ago? Are your bridges and roads better than they were 30 years ago? Because the biggest difference is that Democrats ran this state 30 years ago when Texas was the envy of the world, and Republicans have run it into the ground. And how long are we going to let them do that before we reinstate responsible government that invests in it working, not just trying to disassemble it?
And this really, like I said, sparked a national conversation about redistricting in general. It got California to get involved. Other governors said that they were going to get involved. Do you think that this map is going to pass in Texas, but you're hoping that the other states pick up the slack here for you?
I mean, we of course hope that it won't. We're hoping we can get amendments on it. We're hoping that our Senate in Texas will take some of the brunt of this as well. Why is it always on the state house? But there's a possibility that this sucker will vote or pass, and it's very likely it will expeditiously get it into the court system where we'll be able to fight it, and hopefully before filing starts to be able to get this rectified.
Chairman Kendall Scudder, I appreciate your conversation again. You're welcome back anytime. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I sure appreciate it.